Hello and welcome, everybody. We're excited to have all of you here with us today as we discuss how you can increase the utilization of GIS within your organization. My name is Ann Taylor, and I'm an account manager and the tribal program lead at ESRI. This webinar is actually one of our regularly scheduled tribal webinars, but because of the interest in this topic, we've opened it up beyond the tribal community. So welcome, everybody. Before we get started today, we'd like you to know a few things. First of all, everyone is in listen-only mode, so please use the chat window to ask any questions that you might have. We will try to answer as many questions as possible at the end of the session. If we don't get to all of the questions today, we will be following up with you on those questions in an email that will go out to everybody. One other thing, we have uploaded a document that we thought would be a good resource for everybody that's interested in this webinar. So feel free to download this Architecting the ArcGIS Platform document for future reference. It's actually, if you look in the console, it's under handouts and it's the PDF. So feel free to download that today if you'd like. And now I'm going to hand it over to Adam Karnow, who is going to do the presentation.
Okay, thanks very much, Ann. Again, my name is Adam Karnow. I'm joining you live from the ESRI Southeast United States Regional Office in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm going to talk to you today about the underutilization of GIS and how to cure it. And one of the reasons that GIS is vastly underutilized in most organizations is that most people who are not GIS users, they hear the term GIS and they think MAP. Those are the map makers, and they think that that's all that GIS people do. And so part of changing the underutilization of GIS in your organization is changing your image, is getting rid of that map maker image. So we want people to use the analytics portion of GIS, and that's the biggest return on investment and the biggest value you can bring to your organization. So what we want to do is change our image from map maker to enterprise IT solution provider using spatial analytics. And one of the ways that we can start to do that is by changing our elevator pitch. How often do you meet somebody new and they ask you what you do for a living and you say, I make maps? So that's part of the problem. So all of us need to change that. One that I've come up with is I help people make better decisions through the power of location. So think about that for a little bit, but also start to find ways in your organization to change your image and talk to people and sell them on the other side of GIS. And so actually what we'd like to do now is kick it over to our first poll question.
Yeah, so thanks, Adam. Our poll question for today is, are your leaders aware of the more advanced capabilities of GIS? And we'll give you a minute, I think, to answer the poll. And once we've got enough of the folks that have answered, we'll close it up and give you what the summary is. Okay, awesome. Looks like we've got almost 50-50, but a little more on yes, some or all of them are aware, as opposed to no, they think of GIS as map making. So back to you, Adam.
Okay, thanks, Ann. So all of you people that said that all of your colleagues think of you as map makers, you need to start working on that image. And then the other reason that GIS is underutilized in a lot of organizations is that no matter what kind of wonderful technology we have access to, people still do this. They love to print out their maps and color on them with markers and do all other kinds of things. So we've got to break that chain. We've got to break that muscle memory and get people off of the paper map thing and using web maps and digital devices and apps to access their GIS. So one of the ways that you can best, that I like to describe GIS is as a Swiss Army knife. So GIS can do a whole lot of different things. But if all you do with it is edit data and make maps, it's like buying this Swiss Army knife and using number 12, the toothpick. So our job as GIS practitioners is to get the more utilization of GIS in an organization is to, number one, you have to learn all those tools and how to use them and when to use them. And number two, you then need to sell or market the use of those to your colleagues. So now that we know what all those tools can do, we need to help people understand when they need to use them and when we can use them to help them achieve their mission and get their job done. So this could be really easy, actually, because when someone asks you for a map, just simply ask them why they need it and probe a little bit. They're usually trying to work on a problem or solve a problem or answer a question, or they got some sort of project. And most times there will be an opportunity to do some spatial analysis or to use these other tools available to you. Hopefully everybody out there has heard of the term business intelligence, commonly referred to as BI. This is the set of techniques and tools for the transformation of raw data into meaningful and useful information for business analysis purposes. Basically what this is organizations across the globe in every industry have realized that they're spending a lot of money and time and resources on collecting, managing, and keeping data up to date. And it's about time they actually use that data to make a better decision. So people are implementing BI platforms and solutions across the globe. They can be very, very costly, or they can be really inexpensive. And the most widely used BI tool is Excel. And I think that this is an important concept for us as GIS professionals to understand, because GIS can really be considered a subset of BI, because there's lots of value that we know as GIS professionals locked up in location in our database. And most data have a location component. And so if you're not using GIS, you're leaving that value of the location, you're leaving that on the table and you're not utilizing it correctly. So really you could consider GIS as location intelligence, or LI, which is the process of deriving meaningful insight from geospatial data relationships to solve a particular problem. And again, I think this is a great example of how GIS should be portrayed for people to understand that it is more than making maps. It's more about analyzing data to make a better decision. So GIS was created to perform spatial analysis, and I think a lot of times we lose sight of this. I know that when I got interested in GIS and decided to learn more about it and make it my career, one of the things that did that was the interest was the spatial analysis. And most of us probably learned all kinds of spatial analysis capabilities when you first learned GIS, wherever that was. But the interesting thing is, a lot of times once we get a job, we don't do much spatial analysis. And the reason is because your colleagues don't know what spatial analysis is. They don't know when to use it or how to use it or why to use it. So again, it's more of a marketing problem, this underutilization. We've got to help educate our colleagues on the power of spatial analysis and when to use it, so that they'll start to understand the value of it and actually seek you out and ask you to do it. So that's why GIS exists. That's when Roger Tomlinson created the first GIS in the 60s in Canada to evaluate all of the federally owned lands and create the plan for those resources. He figured out how to put the maps into the computer and then do the overlay analysis that he needed to create that plan. So spatial analysis is a big deal, and we've got these 6 different categories of spatial analysis, and I'll go through each one and offer an example. So what's interesting about this list too is not only do we need to do more of these things, so seek out opportunities to do this, but as you move down this list, the value of that analysis increases. So do more spatial analysis on this list, but also push your analysis down to the bottom, because that's where more value is. So the first one is understanding where. So I can make a map of the fire stations in a city, and that's valuable, and that helps me understand where they are. We can measure size, shape, and distribution. So we can measure the size, shape, and distribution of wetlands in a state, and that will help us understand which ones are flourishing and which ones are not doing well and which ones need to be protected, et cetera. We can determine how places are related. A good example here is that you can look at soils and you can look at floodplains, and usually there's a correlation, and it can help you understand the soils versus the floodplains and vice versa, and see how they work together. You can find the best locations and paths. So let's go back to the fire station example. Most fire departments and most fire personnel want to be on site from their station within 10 minutes. So we can take our fire stations, and using the street network, we can derive a drive time polygon using the network analysis, and it will show us these polygons around each fire station. All we then need to do is find out where there's a hole, where one of those polygons is not covering all of our city, and that's where we need to put a new fire station. By finding the best path, I'm not talking about how do I get from here to the airport. I'm talking about I've got 50 inspections today and 3 inspectors. How do I best divvy up that work amongst the 3 inspectors and then give them a most efficient drive path to visit all those inspection locations and get back to the office? That right there is huge value that you can bring. Many organizations have an opportunity to use that workflow. That workflow can be done by a non-GIS professional using simply a web browser and a spreadsheet. So if you have those example workflows in your organization, definitely check into how to use ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Workforce to make that much more efficient. We can detect and quantify patterns. A great example here is crime. Most crime happens in patterns, and there's many crime analysts out there studying this and trying to find the bad people and predict where the next crime is going to be. The last one, speaking of predictions, is making predictions. A great example here is if I'm an emergency management director for a city and I know I'm going to get hit with 12 inches of rain in the next 24 hours. If you've modeled the floodplains and the watershed in my city, we can actually predict which parts of the city will flood. So that really helps an emergency management director make a decision on where best to position the resources in response to that flood ahead of time. So spatial analysis is what we're here for. That's what GIS is created for. Please make sure we market and educate your colleagues on the value of this and look for more and more opportunities to do as much of this as possible. So the middle part of this presentation, I was inspired by and I borrowed from this great presentation that I found online by Mr. Benjamin Yalin. He's a SharePoint consultant, and he was finding the same thing that I was seeing with our customers, and that his customers had purchased SharePoint and they weren't getting the full utilization of that investment. And so he wrote this great presentation called Stop Updating, Start Evolving. I tweaked it a little bit to fit the GIS messaging, but I did want to definitely give him the credit for this. And he talked about that we're stuck in a routine, that version 10.5 comes out of ArcGIS, 10.6 comes out, 10.7, et cetera. And our customers, once they have a chance, they update to the latest software and then move on. But over years, especially the last 5 to 10 years, ArcGIS has really transformed from software that runs on different devices to a fully integrated cloud-based platform that allows you on the desktop to do your work, quickly share it with anybody, on any device, anywhere, at any time. And so therefore, that has transformed the opportunity that you can provide value to your organization and the opportunity for you personally to be of more value and to do more in the organization, and not to do all the GIS, but enable everybody to use GIS. So we want to help you transform with the platform as it has evolved and created more and more opportunities for you to provide value to the organization. We want to help you transform. And the way we want to do it is with all the different tools included within GIS. So if we go back to the Swiss Army knife analogy of all those blades and tools on that Swiss Army knife, these are all the blades and tools available to you in your GIS. So starting in the upper left, we've got spatial analysis. I've talked about that in detail. Apps, there's a whole bunch of apps that are available to you as part of the ArcGIS platform. Please make sure you're aware of all of them, understand their value and their workflows where they can bring value, work with your ESRI account team to understand them, and make sure you're utilizing as many of those as possible. Content, there's incredible thousands and thousands of layers, amazing layers available on ArcGIS Online, both within the Living Atlas that are curated by ESRI and partners, et cetera, as well as your fellow users out there. We've got all the census data, all the American Home Survey data out there, American Community Survey data. There's live weather, live traffic, aerial photography. I mean, you name it, live flood gauges, amazing stuff out there. And I think a lot of that is completely underutilized. There's lots of, we have an entire demographic division that produces their own data. That's very valuable. We've got all kinds of spending data. I can even map how many people in my community have purchased a bicycle for a child in the last 12 months. I mean, the detail is amazing. So please make sure you're getting the most value out of that content. Real-time GIS is one of the most exploding areas of GIS right now. As organizations are looking to make better decisions through data. They're wanting to do that through real-time data that they're getting from sensors. Those could be stationary sensors like a flood gauge. It could be a moving sensor showing the location of a person or a vehicle, or it could be events that just happen like a crime. So if you've got real-time data in your organization, all of that has a location associated with it. So make sure you're integrating that with your GIS. We can work with big data. We can do mapping and visualization. You've got access to a full imagery and remote sensing package inside of our GIS. Aerial photography is very expensive. It should be used for more than just a pretty backdrop. If you've got multiple years of it, you can calculate change over time. You can extract features from it. Lots of powerful capabilities within the imagery and remote sensing area. 3D is another expanding area of GIS. There's lots of great applications for that. 3D has in the past not been developed by many people because it took a lot of time and money and effort because you had to create every building from scratch. But a couple of years ago, we came out with some tools that are automated that run within ArcGIS Pro, so that if you've got LiDAR data and building footprints, you can run these processes and actually in an automated fashion create an entire 3D base map. So if you're not using 3D and you've got access to that kind of data, definitely start into creating a 3D GIS. We can work with CAD data. You might not be aware of it, but Autodesk and ESRI have come to a new relationship. We're much more partners now. So you'll see a lot of more interoperability between Autodesk and AutoCAD, Revit, all of that CAD data and BIM data coming into ArcGIS and vice versa. We can manage data and data management. We can do geodesign. So geodesign is a GIS-enabled process for planners. So if you work with planners, community planners, urban and regional planners, you should talk to them about geodesign. So we take our plan, we put it into the computer. We can then simulate how that plan would work in the real world using the geodesign capabilities of the GIS. It can be done in 2D or 3D. Then we can evaluate our plan and then tweak our plan and then rerun it over and over and over again until we come up with the best plan that we think will work. Then as that plan is implemented in the real world, we can actually track its usage and see if it's meeting its goals. So if you work with planners, talk to them about geodesign. If they want to learn more, the best way to do that is ESRI hosts a geodesign summit every year. That design summit is intended not for the technical people, but for planning directors. So get your planning directors to the geodesign summit and they can learn a lot more. Lastly is community engagement, and this is a key area. In fact, I want to pull that out by showing this article from last couple years ago. It was a survey of government leaders, and it talked about how they're completely feeling overwhelmed by demands of civic engagement. Most everything a government does has a location component, so GIS can be a great way to help engage the community so that everybody's on the same page and working towards solving the initiatives that the government is concerned about. So reach out to those people that are in charge of civic engagement if you work for a government agency, whether that's your public information officer or your communications department. Show them some of the tools like story maps that are crowdsourcing tools that we've got that can really help them meet their message. So I wouldn't have thought back in the day that GIS managers should work with the communications department, but I've seen customers that do reach out to them and all of a sudden they become some of the most work that they're doing, some of the biggest customers they're working with. I don't want to get into a battle between on-premise and the cloud. I'll simply tell you that the cloud is a powerful part of the ArcGIS platform. If you're not utilizing it, then you're missing out on a lot. So that workflow I mentioned about taking your data on the desktop and instantly sharing it out with anybody on any device, anywhere, at any time, that's all powered by the cloud, whether that cloud is hosted on-site or off-site in a public cloud. So definitely make sure that you're using the cloud portion of the ArcGIS platform. And just to show you the power of cloud computing, this article came out last year and it talked about how cloud computing is going to virtually replace traditional data centers within 3 years. Another thing that Mr. Nealon talked about is if you're going to provide different services and different experiences, if you want to change your image of being a map maker, you've got to provide different services and different experiences. And a great example of that are interactive operations dashboards. They're very easy to deploy. You can configure them without writing any code. They're really fun and easy to throw out there if you've got the data. What I'm showing here are some examples of publicly accessible dashboards that are available from the city of Johns Creek, Georgia. They're a suburb of Atlanta, about 84,000 in population, and they have a GIS department of just 2 people. And this one is showing all of the fire department calls they've responded to. This one's showing business licensing. This one's showing work orders, and this one is showing building permits. So lots of great examples of dashboards, and I'll show a few more here. This one's a great one from Oro Valley, Arizona. This one shows all the unbuilt, vacant and unbuilt land inventory. This is great data for any city or county that would be interested in this, because you're always interested in what land is left that could either be developed or needs to be protected. It's a great use of a dashboard. Here's another one from Tempe, Arizona. This one is helping people understand the opioid abuse problem in that city. This is an interactive dashboard. You can come in here and query it and understand this problem much more. These complex issues like this, if we're all going to work together to solve them, we need to understand them better. And this is the way to do that, through apps like this. Here is a dashboard from St. Johns County, Florida. This is related to Hurricane Irma. This one was integrated with their work order and asset management system. So this allowed them to see exactly where they needed to place resources as they were responding to the storm. This one's from Hernando County, Florida, also from Hurricane Irma. This one was designed specifically for county commissioners to look at. So each of those colored polygons is a different county commissioner district. And so this was connected to the live data feeds from the damage assessments happening out in the community after the storm. So this was great, because this was providing an elected official up to the minute information about exactly how badly their constituents were being affected by the storm. So if you turn elected officials into GIS users through an app like this, it really helps them understand the value of GIS beyond just making maps. This one here is a story map full of multiple dashboards. This one's for the governor of Arizona. This one covers all of emergencies happening around the state. So he's got a tab on the migration caravan, on weather-related emergencies, firefighting emergencies, etc. Access to it 24 hours a day on any device. Really, really powerful. This one here is from the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. This one's all about traffic, and it's integrated with Waze, so they can actually see the incidents on Waze as they are reported by Waze users. This is key because people across the country that are integrating with Waze are seeing that people report accidents on Waze 1 to 2 minutes faster than they actually calling 911. So getting that 1 to 2 minute jump on the emergency response is key. And you can see that they have access to their traffic cameras as well. So if you're haven't deployed any dashboards, you should start doing that immediately, because that helps people understand the value beyond the maps. And the executives and elected officials are not going to ask you for a dashboard. You need to be proactive and just put one together, put some data in it that you think they'll find valuable, show it to them, and then I guarantee you they'll look to ask for what else you could do. We want to make sure we're providing this information to people on their cell phones. Everybody has a smartphone these days. They want to work on that smartphone, so we need to provide them what they want, when they want, and where they want it right away. And nobody works alone. Everybody works in groups. And so if you help people collaborate and get more work done together, your value gets raised up in the organization as well. So web maps and GIS apps are a great way for people to collaborate and get their work done. So be sure you're providing GIS tools to others that they can work together to get their job done. And don't underestimate the power of this technology. WebGIS can actually transform organizations for the better. Most organizations are designed like the diagram on the left. They're hierarchical. It's pyramid shaped. So somebody at the top, it's very slow, very formal. Somebody at the top needs something, that request trickles down. Somebody at the bottom does it, and the result trickles back up. What ArcGIS is designed to do is work like the diagram on the right in a networked fashion. And that is where I know what my executives and decision makers need, and I simply provide them the tools to access it directly whenever they'd like. So in the instance of the emergency management director, if I know that I'm the emergency management director and I know we're going to get hit by 12 inches of rain in the next 24 hours, I shouldn't have to request a GIS map from somebody. I should just be able to pick up my tablet, open up a dashboard, do 2 or 3 clicks, get the latest information, because it's all tied to live web services and real-time GIS, get the information I need, make a decision, and move on about my day. So that's a networked fashion. So that's how you should be implementing ArcGIS in your organization and providing those apps to across your organization. And when you do that, it will change the way the organization works for the better. And so back over to Ann. I think we have our second poll question for this one, right?
Yep. Thanks, Adam. Okay, second poll question. How does your organization use GIS? And the three options: in a hierarchical manner, in a networked manner, or some combination of the two.
So many people will answer in a combination, but let's see what happens.
That's your bet? Are you?
Yeah.
So, okay, sounds good. All right, you're right. In a hierarchical manner, we've got 29%, networked 11%, and combination of the two, 60%.
Okay,
so
all right. All right, thanks, Dan. Yeah, so those who use it, the answered hierarchical, you need to learn to how to integrate it into your organization in a networked fashion and deploy some of those tools. And the way you do that, this next slide here, is with easy to use focused apps that are mobile and ready to go. Everybody takes their app experience from their personal life and brings it to the office. So how often do you download an app on your phone and then watch a video or read a book about how to do it or take a class on how to use that app? Nobody does. I mean, I download an app on my phone. If I can't figure out how to use it in 30 seconds to a minute, I delete it or never use it again. And that expectation is coming to the office. So when we provide access to GIS, it needs to be an easy to use, really focused apps, work on the mobile devices, and they're ready to go. So the overall goal for you to get the most out of your GIS in your organization is to give everybody alternatives. Let them use whatever device they'd like, which means our apps need to be responsive so that they understand what device they're on and respond to that appropriately. So that means also that you need to have a mobile-first app strategy and make sure that all your apps are accessible on mobile devices. But we also want to keep them in a known, controlled, and secure environment. Security is huge, obviously. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that everybody is logging in. So they have a username and a password. And that username is not Fire Inspector 1. No, it is Fred Jones, because we have to know who Fred is and what he has access to, and that when he leaves the organization, we turn off his access. And then we want these people using the latest and most authoritative data. That means live web services, so that we always know that they're up to date. So if you take a web map and tie it and feed it, pump live web services into that web map and save it, you never need to make that web map again, because it will always be updated with the latest data. So this is the overall goal of a mature, modern, networked ArcGIS implementation in your organization. So this is what should be driving you as you implement GIS and seek to get more value out of it in your organization. So we also want to help the business get the work done. So the focus of everything we should do should be on the business, not on the technology. So everything we do should be helping the business get things done better, solving problems, getting around issues, offering new services, generating more revenue, all of those things. Anything that helps the business get work done, that's what we want to do. So we start with the business, find the business problem, the business challenge, the business opportunity, and then we craft a technology solution to meet that, not the other way around. Not look and find some cool technology and figure out where to use it in my business. We want to give people choices. Again, an alternative. So here we've got 3 devices, 3 different apps, the same web map. So on the left, we've got the phone running collector. That's using a web map. That person's out in the field collecting live data. That same web map is in the dashboard on the desktop monitor you see there. So somebody back in the office is monitoring the situation, looking at the dashboard live and seeing the data change right in front of them. And in the lower right, you've got a tablet, somebody using Explorer. They're also out in the field and they're redlining and making notes, et cetera. And all that is feeding back to all 3 devices and all 3 apps. This is the vision right here for how you should be utilizing ArcGIS in your organization. So it's time for all of us to wake up, and it's time for us to transform into GIS superheroes. So this brings to the close Mr. Neolin's Stop Updating, Start Evolving presentation. I'm going to take it back over with my original content. And what I'm going to do here is show how 5 different customers of ArcGIS are actually utilizing it to make a big difference in their organizations and in their communities. So I've got a pretty good selection here. I've got Walgreens, I got a government agency in South Australia, the city of Los Angeles, California, my hometown here in Charlotte, North Carolina, the water department, and then also the city of Rancho Cucamonga, California. So I'd like to start off with Walgreens, and I know that we probably have most people on this call or work for government agencies, but governments are businesses, and I think they should be run like businesses. And I think we can learn a lot from Walgreens and how they're utilizing ArcGIS, and they are not underutilizing it at all. And this is actually one of my favorite case study videos that I've ever seen ESRI produce, and we can learn a lot from this. So I'm going to go ahead and show this video, and then afterwards we'll come back and I'll talk to you a little bit about it.
My name is Gillian Elder. I'm the director of our Enterprise Location Intelligence team at Walgreens. Our Enterprise Location Intelligence group is well placed right in our corporate strategy organization. What this means is that we're well positioned in order to service a bunch of the divisions throughout the company. So we end up partnering with divisions across the entire company to improve upon the information that's going into their decisions.
Understanding our customers, where they live, where they work, why they're shopping us is the core of what we do, and that's in many ways a spatial question. Our work and our spatial analysis and our mapping technology is centered around serving customers.
Walgreens has started an initiative to offer flu shots at nearly every location. With a network of 8,000 stores, we really have the ability to identify sales trends of products that are relating to flu. And with that, a flu index was created.
Now, the way we get this data is we use our prescriptions for antiviral medications. And that, for us, is our best indicator of flu activity, because generally speaking, when someone has a positive flu test, they're getting prescribed an antiviral to help treat it.
When we combine that in with our mapping applications, we were able to, before the CDC could report on it, understand where flu was happening throughout the country.
It was very important for us to have a simple mapping platform that would illustrate what we were showing in the flu index each week. What the CDC does is their data is reported on a 2-week lag, whereas inside of a week we're able to turn around data. So I think that, that really helped us in terms of the credibility of the flu index, because ours was closer to real time, and I think that was very important.
What we've been able to do is show people how important having that spatial lens on our information and on our analytics is. Walgreens is a 24-hour company. That means we need to be able to provide data on any device at any time, anywhere.
So many of the important decisions that we make within our company are based on location, where stores are going to be, how we want to merchandise those stores in terms of the items we want to have in those stores. And all of that is really driven by the wall map tool that we have.
WallMap allows us to provide spatial solutions to people that aren't experts in GIS. So we were able to deploy solutions that are much more user-friendly and easy to learn.
We made it broad-based, so all of our data is there and very easy to turn layers on and off, and to have some basic dashboarding so that anybody here at the company can consume Walgreens information in a map format.
Mergers and Acquisitions uses WallMap on a daily basis. Each of our managers are responsible for territories across the country, and they use WallMap to identify competitor locations. We look at distances, we look at population of certain Walgreens trade areas, we look at demographic information and how that could play into the business retention that we expect when we purchase pharmacies.
For our users that go out into the field, we needed WallMap Pro Mobile. And what that really does is allow people to use any sort of mobile device when they're out in the field so that they can look at data about our stores right there. Now we can actually have a tablet that follows us as you go, the map pans as you move, and I can go ahead and take inked notes against an aerial background, against a map background, against a market share background, against our stores, over the top of our competitors, right there out in the field.
What's amazing about the GIS platform is not just all the data that it can aggregate, but its ability to display that to make it easier for executives to understand what's going on and make the right strategic choice for the company.
At the core of how people behave is geography, and strategically having a geocentric approach and thinking locationally and geographically is huge. If you're not, you're missing something.
Okay, so great video there. One of the things I want to, or a few things I want to point out. Number one, do you see Gillian Elder, who starts speaking at the beginning, and she leads the video throughout much of the video itself. I'm not sure if you caught what her title is, but her title is the Director of Enterprise Location Intelligence. Okay, she used to be the GIS manager, but she elevated GIS in her organization to become an enterprise IT system that the executives and staff rely on every day to make better decisions to do their jobs. So they rebranded it to Enterprise Location Intelligence. She became a director. So not only did she raise the value of the GIS in the organization, she did the same for herself professionally as well as all of her staff. So she's done a really great job at selling the value of GIS to the executives. You saw multiple executives talking about how valuable GIS was and how they use it every day to make better decisions. She talked about how putting a spatial lens on their data and making it easy to access to all employees, even on mobile devices, 24/7, 365. So she's a rock star, and she's done what everybody should be doing with GIS and elevating it, not underutilizing it, but fully utilizing it. And a lot of that is the sales job, just getting executives to understand the value of it. So really great work there at Walgreens. One of the things that I don't understand is that most organizations that use GIS don't have a GIS strategic plan. And that's absolutely critical, because what you just saw happen at Walgreens did not happen by accident. It happened because they actually had a plan and they executed against that plan. So if you don't have a GIS strategic plan, you need to make sure that you create one and as a living document and something that you actually helps drive your organization forward in their use of GIS. What I'm showing here is a slide from presentation that a gentleman named Gary McGuire from South Australia used in a presentation at our user conference a few years ago. And what this is his executive summary of his geospatial strategy for his government agency. And I love it because it's very elegant and it's direct and it's to the point. And these 4 things that he's focusing on, this could act as the direction of any organization across the globe in any industry to drive their geospatial strategy. And the 4 things that he emphasized were: number 1, coordinate. He wants to facilitate collaboration. I want to help people work together. Number 2, I want to simplify things. I want to improve the business practices, help the business be more efficient, get more done. Number 3, innovate. I'm here to create smarter service offerings. And number 4, I'm here to enable. I want to create informed decision makers. Deploy tools that decision makers can use themselves to get the information and insight they need to make better decisions. It's wonderful. All right, this next example I'd like to go over, this is from Charlotte, North Carolina, here where I'm located at. This is from their water department. And I had a meeting with them at their headquarters, and I saw this picture on the wall, and I just had to ask them why they had this picture on the wall. And they said, well, we like to remember that. That's the way Charlotte Water used to work before we had GIS, back when we used paper maps. They're a very innovative organization, one of the best municipal water customers that we have across the United States. And so they don't make paper maps anymore. But I asked them, I said, well, talk to me about how Charlotte Water functioned before GIS. So you see that white map on the back of on the board in the back of the room. What would happen is someone would call in and say, we see a leak at the following address. So someone would go to that map and find that address on that map, and that map has this typical grid on it with letters and numbers. And so you would find the address, you'd see what box it was in. Let's say it was in box number C3. You then would go to that wall with all the map bins in it, and you would find bin number C3 or letter C3. You would then pull out all the maps and start opening them and trying to find the address that you were looking for. And then once you found the address, you could see exactly what kind of water infrastructure was there. So I knew exactly what size and type of pipe was there. So I knew which crew to send out and what kind of supplies to send it to. I was like, wow, that's incredible. I mean, when you talk about digital transformation, this is the before. The after picture is even better, because when I was meeting with them, they said, well, you want to see what our map room looks like now? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So we walk around the corner, and this is their map room now. So really great benefit of GIS you probably never thought of is that if you get rid of paper maps, you could turn your map room into a fitness center. So love that wonderful story. The next one I'd like to talk about is the city of Rancho Cucamonga, California. They're a town of about 160,000 right near our headquarters in Southern California. And you see the middle there, that's Ingrid Bruce. This is several years ago at our user conference. They won our President's Award, which is the top award that ESRI gives. Jack himself selects it. Ingrid has since retired, and then when you get these slides, you'll have a link to click on here to view this video. It's a short video of their presentation on stage. But what's really amazing is you'll see the gentleman on the right, that's John Gillison. He's the city manager for the city of Rancho Cucamonga. And he will actually demonstrate GIS and talk about the value, talk about how he uses it every day, and how all of the employees for the city come to work every day looking for new ways to use GIS to make the city of Rancho Cucamonga the best it can be. And that is really amazing job that Ingrid had done to convince all of the upper echelon, everybody on board, understand the value of GIS, and then find new ways to use it. So really, as I talked about earlier with Walgreens, it's really just a sales job of you getting everybody on board to understand the value of GIS and then to embrace it and become users themselves. Next, I'd like to talk about the city of Los Angeles. We did some work with them several years ago, and the result was their GeoHub. And this has led to our product, ArcGIS Hub. But what's interesting about this project is this wasn't a GIS project or an IT project. This was an initiative from the mayor. So Mayor Garcetti was looking for a platform that he could use to engage everybody together, get them all motivated, moving on his initiatives together. So that meant city staff, county staff, the citizens, the businesses, the startup community, the academic community, you name it, the nonprofits. He wanted everybody on the same page as him, working together on his initiative to make the city of Los Angeles the best it could be. So if you go to this website, you'll see this is an open data website, but it's a whole lot more than that. You'll see some very targeted applications. Number one, some of the initiatives that Mayor Garcetti promised or told the people of LA to get elected, he promised that, number one, he would clean up the streets, really clean up the streets. He thought they were too dirty. So they actually put cameras on all the sanitation vehicles. They drove every single street in the city, and then they categorized them as clean or dirty. And then they prioritized the cleanup of the dirty streets. So you can go up here and you can see a story map with data that changes over time to see exactly where they are, how well they're doing in cleaning up the streets. Another one is he thought that the pavement was in bad shape for all their streets. So he told the citizens of LA that he was going to pave 2,400 lane miles of streets while he was in office. And so you can go up there and see the app and see the time data and see how it's changed over time and see exactly where he is in meeting those initiatives. So I really like the use of GIS specific around promises and initiatives the mayor, the top executive in that city, is using to get to his goals. There's a lot of other stuff up there, so definitely check it out. But I'd like to talk about this one app that's up there. And it's a very simple app, and it's based on one of our off-the-shelf configurable templates. And what it is, it seems very simple, but the value of it and the story behind it I really like. So they call it Streetwise. And this app simply shows every project that the city is executing across the city in every department. So I can put an address in, I can click on the map, or if I'm in LA and I had this open on my device that has GPS, you can zoom to my location. It then creates a buffer around your location. You can choose the size of the buffer in the upper right there. It then creates the buffer, and then it returns all the projects that fall within that buffer. So you'll see in this example, There's 41 city projects, and then they appear in a scrolling list on the right-hand side. So I can scroll through the list, find out more information about those projects. You'll see there's a tab in the upper right. I can even look into the future, put some dates in there, and it'll show me all the projects scheduled in the future. So you think, big deal, what's the big deal about this app? Why is it so valuable? Well, first I'd like to talk to you about the story behind it. The reason this app exists is because the city needed to do some work on a street segment, and they had to close that street down because they were going to tear the street up. And it just so happened that street segment was right in front of a school. Well, what day do you think they picked to shut down the street? Of course, it was the first day of school. So traffic got really bad. We all know how bad the traffic is on the first day of school. So this traffic problem trickled all the way up to the mayor. It was so bad. And he called different departments into his office and said, look, this is ridiculous. How did this happen? How did nobody know that that project was in front of the school and that was the first day of school? You could have done it any other time. We've got to do better here. So he said, I want a single database that has all projects in the city in it, and I want an app that shows them on the map, and then I want that available to everybody internally and as well as externally. So that's great. But think about this. How many times does a city shut down a street segment, rip up the pavement, do a project, and then repave it? And then sure enough, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, a different department in the city comes by, tears up that exact same street segment, does their work, and then repaves it again. So that happens all the time across America. And that is not smart government. That's not an efficient use of taxpayer dollars. So now with this app, multiple departments can see if they both have projects on the street segment, same street segment. And if so, they can coordinate, they can tear it up, both of them do their project and then pave it once and move on about their day. So really simple app, but great story and really high value back to the organization. The next thing I'd like to talk about is, do we need to rebrand GIS to location intelligence? And I'd like you to think about this question after this webinar. I believe that we do. Again, people, like I talked about at the beginning, people hear GIS and think you're a map maker. And so in order to change that image internally throughout your organization, I think it would help to rebrand ourselves and our departments into something used like location intelligence. You saw this in the Walgreens video. They rebranded GIS to Enterprise Location Intelligence. In the example of the organization from South Australia, Gary Maguire, when he was leading that group, he was the manager of business and location intelligence. So I really think it helps people get their minds around the value of GIS on the spatial analytics side, which is very important. So I think all of us should think about this as we move forward. And I'm seeing more and more departments and professionals change the names of their departments and their titles. I know here in the city of Charlotte, they've got a big smart city initiative. So they reorganized and renamed their IT department. It's now Innovation and Technology. And then in there, they've created a decision analytics group. And that decision analytics group is made up of GIS and business intelligence, or BI. So this GIS manager, her title is now decision analytics manager. So I really like that because it focuses less on the map and more on the analytics. Another thing to think about as a GIS manager or someone leading your organization with GIS is that you've really got to have a great plan around your computing infrastructure that supports your GIS work. So however many servers and so forth you have powering your GIS, those servers are limited. They can only serve X number of users in X number of ways. So as you roll out more applications and seek to expand the use of GIS in your organization, you've got to make sure that you're expanding your infrastructure to serve those additional users. And the last thing you want to do is roll out a dashboard to an executive or an elected official, and it's either really slow and or it falls down and doesn't work at all. That's really horrible. So please make sure to diagram your infrastructure, understand its capabilities and its limits, and then as you deploy each app, analyze the users that are going to be using that, and then see if your infrastructure can handle it. If not, expand it to meet those needs. What you're looking at here is the system architecture design for the GIS at Pinellas County, Florida. Now, they're a big enterprise GIS. They have a population of about 1 million people. This is 53 servers, which seems like a lot. But guess what? This is old. They actually have a an updated infrastructure plan that I don't have right here, and that's got 98 servers. So that, my friends, is real enterprise GIS. It is a core IT system that county runs on and cannot run without. And yes, it costs a lot of money, but they're bringing in a huge amount of value that totally justifies it across the board. So please don't try to run a well-developed, complex enterprise GIS on just a few servers. Make sure you're expanding your infrastructure to meet the needs as you expand your use. The next thing I'd like to talk about is commercial off-the-shelf, or COTS, versus custom. There is a wide spectrum here between commercial off-the-shelf and custom. Commercial off-the-shelf has a low degree of customization, a low cost of development and deployment, won't cover all the customer needs, and has a shorter time to deployment, whereas custom is on the other end of the spectrum. So it's important to understand here that when you deploy custom technology, create a custom app or start writing code, it's like having a baby. You have to feed that baby, you have to bathe that baby, you have to dress that baby, etc. It's something that you have to take care of over its life cycle. And if you do too much custom development, pretty much then all your time will be taken up trying to keep those apps up and running. And that is not sustainable. So people need easy to use apps. It means you need lots of apps, so you can't make them all custom. So you really need to make sure you don't do things just because you can. You need to do things only if you should. So the analysis of whether you create a custom app is a business decision. You should look at a total cost of ownership. You should then figure out, does it make business sense to create this app? If so, then write the code. But don't do it if you can, only if you should. And also, if you're going to meet 100% of your customers' needs, almost all the time, if you try to do that, you'll always go custom. So it's okay to say no and not meet all their needs, if that makes business sense. So I like to have the attitude of Dr. Ian Malcolm from the Jurassic Park movies, where he talked about you were so preoccupied with whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think if you should. This is the same mindset you should have when you go to write code. Try only to do it if you should, if it makes business sense and you've got the resources to keep it up and running. I'd like to talk about some of the articles that I've seen online that really help frame this notion of underutilization of GIS technologies. And it all started with this article I found 8 years ago online. And it had this quote in here that really drove me crazy. It said, generally people outside of GIS think of GIS just as maps or graphic product of the younger brother of CAD. And it really made me angry, and it should make you angry as well, but it's totally true. But what's really cool is 8 years ago, this article suggested 5 ways to change that. Number 1, promote the system. What I've been saying here today, get people to understand it's more than maps. Number 2, get a GIS health checkup. This is a great best practice. Everybody out there should be getting an external entity to come in, review your system once a year to analyze it and diagnose it and see if you've got any problems coming up that, and try to solve them before they create a critical problem. Use a best of breed approach, so follow best practices for sure. 8 years ago, consider using the cloud. And then lastly, set GIS up as the central hub, which is what the work with LA did and what the hub can do for you as well. And I found that article through this article, which was all about mapping the cause using GIS to determine potential causes for cancer. And they had a similar quote in there that drove me crazy. And it said, GIS is often seen as maps or visual graphics product, and the more advanced capabilities are ignored because they remain unknown to key departments and decision makers. That is totally true. So your colleagues want your help and need your help. They just don't know it because they don't know what you can do to help them. So a biggest part of curing this underutilization is changing their view of the value of GIS. And then this article that came out earlier this year from an ESRI colleague, I think this following set of quotes from it, everybody should print out and put on your wall because it just sums it up so beautifully. It said GIS is about discovery. It's not about replicating maps that have been around for years. It's about visualizing trends for better decision making. It's about using spatial analytics to provide insight. And enterprise GIS is not a series of spatially enabled or map-based applications. It is a location intelligence platform. Who cares about making maps faster? Enterprise GIS can transform the business by lowering costs and hassles, greatly improving decision-making, and communicating to executives in ways they have never seen before. That, my friend, sums it up perfectly, and it's what we should strive to do in our organization with GIS. So what I'd like to do now is show you a quick and easy way for you to start thinking strategically about GIS in your organization and where you need to be putting more effort. So first thing I'd like to review is that ArcGIS supports these 9 common patterns of use. And this doesn't matter what industry you're in or where you are. All organizations pretty much need these 9 things. Number 1, mapping and visualization. Number 2, data management, field mobility, monitoring real-time systems, providing analytics, creating designs and plans, providing decision support, assisting with constituent engagement, and then helping with sharing and collaboration. So if you want to get the most return on investment for your GIS investment, you should be deploying applications that across all 9 of these patterns for each of your departments. So if you want to see how well you're doing and where you should be doing work, it's really easy. You can go into Excel and create a spreadsheet that looks like this, where each of the columns is the 9 patterns, and then each of the rows is a different department in your organization. And then once you've created it, sit back and color each box either green because you are meeting that need, yellow, you're partially meeting the need, or red, you're not doing it at all. And you can do this in just a couple of hours. And then what this shows you exactly where you're doing well, but where you've got room for improvement and where you can provide some new services and value. So your job here is to simply turn these boxes green. So the yellow and red ones need to be green, and pick them off one at a time, prioritize them. And then maybe it takes you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, whatever it is. But as long as you're moving forward and flipping these boxes and making them green, then you're making some progress. So this is not a strategic plan, but it is the start of at least thinking strategically. So definitely check this out. I've had a few customers use it, and they're really getting a lot of value out of it. And then how do you turn those boxes green? Again, we want to do it in a sustainable manner without writing any code. So make sure you go to solutions.arcgis.com. That's where you can find our collection of free apps for you. They're free, they're open source, they're supported. We migrate them to new versions when we come out with a new version of ArcGIS. There's over 450 of them now. So you can go up there and find all the apps you need to start deploying really quickly. You can deploy them in an automated fashion with a few clicks using ArcGIS Pro and the solution deployment tool. It's really a quick and easy way and a sustainable way, again, by not writing code, by deploying these apps to turn those boxes green. And then don't focus on just one box at a time, or just because a box is green doesn't mean you shouldn't revisit that and look for more opportunities to turn it greener, if you will. So let me go back here for a second and just say that you should also look, there are solutions that cut across all 9 patterns. So for instance, we have a mosquito control solution that has a collection of solutions that has solutions across all 9 patterns. So I can turn that entire row green all at once. So don't just focus on the single box, but again, you look to use these solutions as much as possible. Next thing I'd like to do is talk about best practices. They're very important. I believe this document is one of the most important ones that ESRI's ever created. Everybody here on the webinar should know this document and read it. We update it at least once a year. You'll have a link to it, and it's in the download actually in the webinar software. And it talks about our best practices. And again, it's not just technology. As we've shown on the right, it's people, data, and process. And the people part is some of the most important part of it. And that's where you really need to spend more time, is on the people part. So talking about the people part, first thing I want to do as we wrap things up here is talk about all the ESRI resources available to you. You need to have a strong partnership with ESRI. You should try to partner with us and team with us. Your ESRI team consists of your account team, which is your manager and your account manager and the solution engineer, a team of 2. In addition to that, we have a whole stable of subject matter experts. So we have subject matter experts in every industry there is. So if you need assistance in a specific industry, we can reach back, find these subject matter experts and engage them with you. And they can really help with communicating value to people in those industries in your organization, and also highlighting success stories of similar organizations to yours that are in that industry. You also have access to a training consultant. One of the things those training consultants can do is create for you at no additional cost a workforce development plan. This is a customized plan that shows exactly which courses need to be taken by different staff in your organization based on their roles and responsibilities. This is very helpful in getting training budgeted, because if you have a plan that shows what you're going to do with that budget, you're much more likely to get that funding. We have award-winning technical support. You may not be aware of that we have premium support at an additional cost. This provides support for you 24/7, 365. So for those of you that have operations that run around the clock, you should investigate getting premium support. We have a great professional services group. You can engage them in multiple different ways. And then we have a wonderful program called the ESRI Enterprise Advantage Program, or EEAP. And that bundles the subject matter experts, the training consultant, the technical support, and the services all under one program. And with that program, you get a designated technical advisor. The technical advisor will work with you to create an annual strategic plan. You then execute that plan using the resources in the program. At the end of the year, you'll do another plan for the following year, et cetera. So really valuable program to really move your GIS forward quickly. Lastly, I want to highlight a lot of, we have wonderful ESRI partners. We have a big network of partners that do all kinds of wonderful things and solutions with our customers. Be aware that our partners can earn specialties like ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS for local government. So if you need help in those areas, make sure you look for a partner that has those specialties. They should have a leg up on partners that do not. And then definitely check out the ArcGIS Marketplace, where our partners show off their wares, and also the partner directory. You should also, if you're looking for a partner, work with your ESRI account team. We can help you figure out which is the best partner for the situation you're dealing with. Next is your internal team. You definitely need to have a big internal team behind you. Number one is you need to have a lot of executive champions. You need to have executives that understand the value of GIS and will champion your work within the organization. And the way you get these champions is help them by alleviating their pain or supporting their vision. So talk to executives, find out what their pain is, find out what their vision is, and then help deploy GIS solutions that alleviate their pain and get them closer to their vision. If you do that, they will become champions for you. Your IT leadership should also be a big supporter of your work. They should understand the value of GIS and help you engage with those executives and execute all the work that you do across the organization. Have that GIS strategic plan, align it with your organization's IT plan, as well as your organization's overall strategic plan. You need to make sure you're not trying to do all the GIS work in the organization. A big part of your work is enabling others to use it and enabling them to collaborate. If you do that, your value raises up in the organization. Have the mindset of a GIS consulting firm, where you and your group are a consulting firm, and all the departments out there are your customers. You want more customers, you want happy customers, and you want a profit, which you could see as your return on investment. Market spatial analysis, again, that's the biggest return on investment you're going to get, is using analytics to allow to reveal insight so that people can make better decisions. So change that image from the map maker to the analytics and the solution provider. And then measure and document the impact using your ROI. And there's a spreadsheet up there in the upper right that a gentleman named Wade Cluse put together that you can download and utilize to do that. And then publicize your impact so that people know the value you're providing. Okay, so it's time to seize the opportunity in front of you. Your colleagues need your help and want your help. They just don't know it. So get out there and use the software and the platform to do as much as you can to help your organization and your community. And I'd like to finish up by inspiring people. So I love this quote from Denzel Washington: "Don't aspire to make a living, aspire to make a difference." And if we all did that, this world would be a better place. And I know that's what we here at ESRI seek to do. So thank you very much for your time. Again, my name is Adam Carnell. Here's my contact information. I'm very active on Twitter, GeoNet, and LinkedIn, so I'd be happy to connect with you.